Good morning, everybody. Do you have a favorite mascot, perhaps, of a sports team or of your school? Well, one of our most beloved national mascots is Smokey the Bear, or Smokey Bear. And he came into existence on this date, August 9, 1944. This photograph is of a fire truck in one of the national forests in the 1930s. So there were lots of men fighting fires in the 1930s, but when World War II came, many of those firefighters joined the military. So there was a shortage of firefighters, particularly in the big western national forests. So the Forest Service used advertising, and here's one of those early posters where it says, "Always be careful," kind of a generic message to people about fire and forests and such. So this map reminds us that our big national forests tend to be out west. And this is where there was the biggest threat of forest fires. And early in World War II, when a Japanese submarine shelled an oil field near Santa Barbara, California, and threatened also to start a fire in the national forest, people got really nervous. And the Japanese also did this in the later part of the war years. They had fire balloons. So you see the balloon on the left, in the upper right, the incendiary material, the lower right, a monument to 5 people in Oregon who were killed by a fire balloon. So during the war, the Forest Service utilized Bambi on its posters for being careful with fire. But Walt Disney only let it used Bambi for a year. So when Bambi's time was up, Smokey Bear showed up on this date, August 9, 1944. And here you see Smokey putting out a fire. He's got his trademark hat and blue jeans and such. And the original Smokey drawing was done by Harry Rosal. Here you see one of his posters. And eventually other people drew Smokey, and many people were involved in that. Now, the name Smokey came from a fire chief in New York City, Mr. Smokey, captain here, who had gone blind in a fire and was known for his bravery. So the phrase, "only you can prevent forest fires," became common in the late 1940s, and this was the phrase for about 50 years. Only you can prevent forest fires. Now, there was a real bear who became known as Smokey. He was found in a forest fire in New Mexico in 1950. Here he is. He ended up, I think, in Washington Zoo. And if you go to that part of New Mexico, you can visit a park dedicated to Smokey. This is near the forest where the fire was, where he was rescued. Now, how about Smokey the Bear? Well, there was a song in the 50s where the songwriter added the word "the" just to give it a little bigger, a better rhythm. Technically, he's still Smokey Bear. But then also in the 50s, a book came out, Smokey the Bear, and that was used a lot, and people got used to that. So I think either is correct, Smokey Bear or Smokey the Bear, but Smokey Bear is official. There were dolls that came out in the 1950s. All kinds of paraphernalia came out to honor Smokey. And he has his own zip code, 20252. I think it's really a zip code in New Hampshire. And there's only one other person that has his or her own zip code, and that's the president. There have been lots of postage stamps for Smokey. This is one from his 70th anniversary. I think at 50 there was one, and maybe at 60. And there is a Smokey Bear Award giving to firefighters, organizations, other groups that have been active in preventing forest fires or working to stop them once they spread. And it's a very prestigious award. About 20 years ago, the poster was changed. Only you can prevent wildfires, acknowledging that fires happen in other places besides forests, and sometimes there are controlled burns that are actually good for the forest. So if you're ever out in Oregon, you might see a license plate dedicated to Smokey. A reminder of the icon that we all have come to know and love, especially when we go camping.